Not to worry, you can't do any wrong in my book. Love you. Have a great day.
And now, the most trusted name in radio, serving the Treasure Coast for over 30 years, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
Well, I'm dining on a Wheeler bagel. No, I'm not. I'm dining on a Wheeler muffin, at least the recipe. And I'm up in Vermont. And we have Gary Wheeler himself on the line, former sheriff of Indian River County. And how you doing, Gary? Where are you geographically?
I'm sitting in the office of my bagel shop.
You're in the office of your bagel shop. Okay. And obviously, we've been having multiple conversations, as most people have who are on the conservative side, totally in shock. Totally in shock. I mean, there was a guy on CNN this morning, a guy of medium brown skin. And not that really matters, but it's a way of describing. He's bald, and you'll probably know who he is. I see he's on there a lot. He was suggesting that it was that the murderer was joking around when he inscribed what he inscribed on the bullets. And it happened to be a U.S. senator in the studio with them. And he got real loud about the truth. What is the matter with the left? Why would a man who has any kind of a brain suggest that he was joking around, etching that into the bullets? It's like their minds have gone corrupt. What the hell is going on?
To be philosophical about it, I had somebody tell me a long time ago.
You might have to come in closer so we can hear you better. Can you hear him okay, Doolin? Are we good for him?
Oh, yeah, we can hear just fine.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, being philosophically about the question you just asked, we are what we watch and see. We grew up with Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver and so on and so forth. And now we grow up with all kinds of bad stuff. And the other thing is these people they are what they see every day on social media and all the hatred and with the probably 80% of the media stations out there promote all this propaganda and lies. The Democratic Party, everything they're doing is everything they're accusing the right of doing is what they are doing. And people hear that and talk, and they are, when we were young, Rhett, we were no different. I mean, we all had opinions about the Vietnam War and things. We found out that because of propaganda and lies from the government back then, I had a misunderstanding of what it was. You get the history out in the retrospect. A lot of these kids are going to wake up eventually, I believe. What I do see.
Hold on. This was no kid. This is an adult man, at least in his 50s, a black male, but not really black, tan. A healthy tan color. But bald. But I'm trying to identify him. Oh, you're prejudiced because I'm not prejudiced because he's black. Oh my God, I'm a kid that's been in the Martin Luther King Day parade for decades, Go ahead. Anyway, my mom used to say this. She used to say, beware of the accuser. Gary, we need you here now.
I'm here. You just interrupted my speech and I forgot what I was saying because I'm old.
Hey, look, you got to stop this old crap. Mr.
Well,
Walsh, you're only 80. Mr. Walsh just died at 98 and had clarity of mind. Get your butt up and walk every day and see the difference in mind.
He was the exception rather than the rule.
Most people don't walk. That's right. Most people don't take care of them. Are you doing anything exercise-wise? Because I'm not.
No. I used to. I used to walk 3 to 5 miles a day.
When?
Huh?
When? Since I've known you?
Well, back when I was living in Vero Beach. Anyway, to go back, I just think these kids today will smarten up eventually. And even though he's not a kid, he's still in that generation that come after I say our generation, my generation. I think you could sum history up, if you wanted to, just by saying the pendulum theory, because it explains everything. We go hard left, then we go hard right. And in my generation, I think the people today in the 70s and 80s and 90s who were born from 45 up, we caught the sweet spot of that pendulum swing, and probably the luckiest generation the world's ever seen. But anyway, all this stuff with Charlie Kirk, I think it's profoundly sad, but it's interesting. And I've had some thoughts on that as we talked. And anyway, whenever you want to get into that, but
Yeah, well, I've never seen such mean spiritedness. There was one weirdo who was on YouTube. I don't know where I bump into these people. He's going, "Oh, wasn't it wonderful to see the blood squirt out of his neck? Oh, it's great to see the blood squirt out of his neck." I'm going, "What is this? What the heck is going on?" And now he may be wacky, and that's abnormal. But you got normal people who are saying, this man's just on CNN saying the etchings he put on the bullets where he was just joking around. Why would he even? And this guy was. That's why the senator was on. Had to start yelling. What the hell is going on? What's the matter with people? I mean, maybe there really is a demonic spiritual blindness, more powerful than we ever realized.
well, I think there is. There's only two forces in this world, and that's evil and good. And God and Satan. And the other thing is everything in this world, there's no such thing in this world as standing still. You're moving in one direction or the other. I don't care. Even I used to say in politics, just to make a point, the left is swimming downstream in the river. The right is swimming upstream in the river. All the people in the middle that don't vote or get involved or anything else, they're out there treading water thinking they're out of the system. They aren't. They're all going downstream with whoever's leading the pack because they're in the current. And everything, it's just, you're not making a decision is a decision, as somebody said once. And it's very frustrating to see what's happening, but it's been going on for the last at least 2 decades, moving in this direction. I think maybe 3 decades, because Reagan turned it a little bit. Trump is really great. I tell you this, I know there's people out there that hate Trump so bad they can't see anything positive or good. And just my position on Trump, I wasn't a Trump supporter. I didn't like Trump.
And we'll admit, I want this on tape, though. I was the first in Bureau to promote.
That's right.
You and who's the little cookie kid there?
Well, let me finish before I forget my link, because I want people to understand this.
Yeah.
I didn't like Trump. And when Hillary ran against him, I liked her less. So I sent him a check and I supported Trump. After 2 years in office, I started to respect him. And now in office, I admire him. Trump, in my lifetime now, I believe is the best president we've had in my lifetime. The second best president in my lifetime, that was always the first, is Ronald Reagan. Now, I'm a conservative, but I believe in so many of these people live in a vacuum, in a bubble. They don't pay any attention to they go out and they listen to this stuff, and if they don't have the ability to debate, they turn to violence out of frustration. We watch the videos of Charlie Kirk. If you've got a complaint, you disagree with me, prove me wrong, come down to the front of the line and talk to me. And they would come up with all kinds of things, these really intelligent young college students, and then he'd ask them questions about what they're talking about, and they couldn't answer it. So in a polite way, and just in a debate, they were humiliated, and they hate that because they were looked little.
It was debate. It was debate. It was not hate. But remember,
that's right.
People don't like to be told when they're wrong. Jesus said, "The world hates me because I reveal to them that their deeds are evil." They don't care. They just don't want to be guilty.
Well, the guy that shot him is a little person, and he's a coward.
Yes.
And you'll find out in life, and I'm 80 years old, and I can tell you, I believe this wholeheartedly, with rare exception. Bullies and aggressive people are cowards. And in the animal kingdom too, they're cowards. Predators are cowards, with rare exception. Now, a canine trained for the job is not a coward. But
but look, I will tell you the truth. I've literally seen a big, giant, like a cat going after this mouse, and this male mouse must have been an alpha A male, and he kept jumping up and scaring the cat. The cat went away.
Yeah. And I saw one where probably a 6, 7 foot alligator came up to eat a cat, a house cat. The cows went up and hissed at it and struck at its nose a couple of times. The alligator backed off. It's just huge.
How
And
about
we're
little
no
dogs?
different. We're part of the
We see
human.
that all the time with little tiny dogs. They
Yeah,
nip at your heel. But that's what's happening. You see these movies where you see the demons all going after. They all come and they come and they start to grab at the legs of the people. It's like that. What's going on now? It's like the left constantly is nipping at the heels of the right. And if anybody would read the Bible, you'll see that God visited Samson when he was in bed with a whore. You'll see that God used David, who was a murderer, putting Uriah on the front line to kill him so he could take his wife. Moses was a murderer. It goes on and on. And so Nebuchadnezzar, my servant, God says, "You're my servant." This Nebuchadnezzar was a bad dude. And look at God chose Trump. We know Trump is not perfect, but Trump has the guts to get stuff done. I personally like Ronald Reagan because of my little secure inside, and I like the way he was a gentleman. Reagan was the most presidential president. But I will say this about Trump. Trump is growing in. Now that he's in a position, if he will calm the dam down, he is now becoming more presidential than ever. But pardon me?
I still like Reagan better than I like Trump, but Trump is still the best president for the time.
Okay, there you say it. You were in agreement. Okay, so we both like Reagan best, but we know that Trump, because of his aggressiveness, because he is the CEO of the nation, which we were dying on the vine until we got a caretaker, and so it's hard. Yeah, but you're right. So Trump is president.
If you both put them in their time frame, both of them were excellent presidents. It's funny. I don't know. I watched a documentary on Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt and Trump had a lot of similarities, like I'm going to point out here also eventually with Charlie Kirk, but they had a similarity. Both came from money. Both became president. Both had extremely strong, committed personalities and core values. Both were attempted assassinations. Both reacted with it in a strong, forceful way. Trump raising his hands with fight, fight, fight. Teddy Roosevelt going and giving an 85-minute speech after he was shot and never went to the hospital until afterwards. But yet, politically, both of them, politically, they were opposites. Both were needed for the time they were here because of the oligarchies and what the rich were doing and the government was doing with the middle class, with people living in it, with all the immigration we had and child labor laws and saving land and all that. Today he would have been considered, he was a progressive for his time, but what he did was needed. Trump's a capitalist and a businessman, but both of them, even though politically, if you put them in the same time, if you put Trump back in Trump would have been wrong, Roosevelt would have been right. If you bring Roosevelt to today, Roosevelt would be wrong what he wants to do. Trump would be right. I'm just saying that in their time, they were both doing what they were supposed to do, and there were similarities to compare them. And I want to get into, I don't know if I don't want this to sound wrong, because I was very distraught. The minute I saw that he'd been shot, I immediately lowered my head and prayed.
Yeah, it's devastating.
And when I saw the video a short time later, I know, I can't believe they said at the hospital they're working, because when he was shot, he died instantaneously. I would guess, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I would guess the bullet went through the carotid artery and then severed his spine, because he was dead immediately. He didn't even flinch. He just fell over. But here's what I'm going to say. Let's take something terrible, horrible, and turn it into a positive. And that's what they're doing. That's what his strong, wonderful wife did with her talk. And I sat here thinking, just like I compared Teddy Roosevelt with Trump, I'll compare, and not to compare Charlie Kirk with the deity of Christ, but to compare what they accomplished in their lifetime as men, the human side of Christ and Trump and Kirk. For instance, here's the comparison I made between the two of them, just looking at it. Both of them started in their teens. Christ was 13, and Kirk was 18. Both died in their 30s. Kirk died at 31, Christ at 33. Okay, both of them. The first thing they did, both of them, preached faith in God. And then they talked. They preached faith in God, they talked about God, and then they went to politics, they went to human nature, and they also talked and seeked out hostile crowds toward them to spread the message to.
Debate and not hate.
Yes, exactly. And then both of them had followers or disciples. Kirk was like a disciple or a follower of Christ. And also Kirk, like Christ's disciples, will say, he was a disciple to Christ that has been effective and maybe even more effective to promoting Christ and God's word than his disciples were 2,500 years ago. I mean, they've had, what, 1 million people in Great Britain. They've had people in South Korea, people in this country.
Well, they actually, a little addendum here. They said, I learned this years ago when I started in the media 30 years ago. They say, if you're on TV once nationally, like my song that we recorded in Israel, The Empty Tomb, when I was on the 700 Club, you're on national TV one time, you definitely see more people have seen you than saw Jesus Christ in the entirety of his lifetime.
Well, and the other thing, just both of them were communicators, and both of them were murdered for their beliefs. Also, both of them, in their deaths, became martyrs for God that greatly influenced history, recognition, and conversion of faith to Christ with a lot of these college students. Also, there's 37,000 new applications for charters for Turning Point. And then lastly and knowingly, and this is the important part, both of them knowingly knew the risk of death because of what they were doing, and both of them proceeded because of their faith in God to glorify.
Well, when Charlie was asked earlier this year, what would he like to be remembered as? He goes, you mean if I die? He goes,
his faith.
The courage of my faith, which is amazing. By the way, I just got a text this morning from a lady. I can read it to you. This is going to blow your mind. I took a picture of it. Let me go to my pictures here. And here it is. Since 9/10, that's a few days ago, after Charlie Kirk was killed, since 9/10, we have had over 54,000 students submit a request to start a Turning Point USA chapter, 27,833 college requests, 26,662 high school requests.
They've got 30, what I heard last night, they got 37,000 applications already in.
No, this is 54,000 total.
No, those are inquiries. Those are inquiries and they're part of the same number, but 37,000 of them have already got their paperwork to start their, according to what I've read.
Now, this is like, I've never seen something like this explode exponentially in the entirety of my lifetime, nor your lifetime. No, matter of fact, the world's never seen this. It's kind of like I went to Woodstock, and that was outrageous back then. This is like, this is absolutely unprecedented. The good thing is, I have old friends of mine live in Key West. He's an old hippie. Well, yeah, Charlie Kirk said, what did he say? Hurtful things. And I said, listen to me. Post one of them. Post one of them. He said, if you're black or white, you have the same, there's no white privilege. He said, what can I get that you can't get if you're willing to work at it? Look at me. I was rich when I was young, and then I was in the ghetto when I was in my 20s as a struggling songwriter. I had to work my ass out of the ghetto till I was 36. I was in that stupid ghetto. I had to claw my way out of the ghetto. Listen, and I'm white.
Yep, I know. Here's one last thing that I almost neglected. This is interesting. And you talk to people, particularly people, if they say, well, is this a coincidence or was this guy? Well, there's no coincidence. Well, here's the thing. He was shot Mountain Time at 12:33. You go to John 12:33 in the Bible, and here's what it says. And there were people from the Greeks were at this thing. They wanted to meet Christ. So that Andrew and Philip went and asked him if Christ could meet with them. And Jesus answered and he said this to him. He said, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." That's John 12:23, and that's exactly the time that the bullet struck Charlie Kirk.
Now, and some people out there will say, well, that's just a coincidence. Folks,
No, it's not a coincidence. What are the odds of that coincidence, Rhett? What are the odds?
oh, I know. You and I both know. The thing is that darkness will want to resist it. But what's amazing is how big is your God? You know, I remember that for a while, David Walsh would kind of giggle at me. I mean, I never said this, but let's say I say, "Oh, Lord, help me find a parking spot," or whatever it might be. And he'd like, "God's too busy to do this." But you know what? We have no idea how. Look at, do you have any concept, anybody listening to this or viewing this, have a concept of eternity? Now, we know from scientists right now that the whole world is part of a, what do you call it, a universe. Did you know that Jerry Lamoth taught me this? And we have traveled every day. We travel 2 million miles from where we were yesterday morning at this time. We have traveled the whole universe 2 million miles, and we're in a new neighborhood we've never been in before. Now, that's kind of scary. Okay, now for a second, think. Here's this God who's out there for all eternity. What does the Bible say? It says God created, why did he create man? For fellowship, friendship. He is delighted. It took millions of years to cultivate this earth. I'm driving down the street in my nice car. I'm on my way to a meeting to interview a pastor yesterday, or was the day before. And I was thinking, I almost had tears when I said, it took you millions of years to set up this coincidence, this circumstance, that I can be in a car, that man, the gifted by God, created the car from the elements, and all the things that had to take place with the dinosaurs and all the other stuff. I mean, how great is your God? Actually, the scriptures say, "Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither has entered the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love them." These people that are self-righteous, they have no idea of the story of Jesus. I mean, we have a holy and pure, virgin pure God. So there's no blemish allowed in to his circle. Otherwise, he would be a blemished God. It's like if you took a white cloud and you put a spot in it, it's no longer a pure white cloud. So, but he devised a way that because of man's falling and pride, and obviously he's God, he must have known all this in advance, but I mean, so Jesus comes and said, "I will prove my love." Now, Gary, who would you lay your life down for? Maybe your wife. I think you really would do it for your wife. I know how much you love your wife.
My country.
Would you? I mean, you'd take a bullet.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I did as a police officer. You have that risk.
And yep.
When you believe in something, you believe in something. And it's not that you go out there saying, "I'm going to take a bullet." You go out there to do the job you can do, but you know you're at risk, just like Christ knew he was at risk. Ask God to take it away from him.
But it's rare that, I mean, for Jesus to come and say, "How can I prove my love to Gary Wheeler? How can I prove my love to Rhett Palmer? How can I prove my love to anybody watching this video? How can I prove my love?" Okay, I can tell you I love you. I can make all kinds of flavors of fruits and vegetables. I can do this, I can do that, and create all these animals and this flora and fauna, or I could die on the cross. What better way? There's no way you can refute that. No, Jesus said, "No man have a greater gift to give than to lay down his life for his fellow man." And so Jesus proved his love. Why this is so hard to get through the heads of people. And then there's the self-righteous pride thing. Have you ever, even lately, something happened? I was a little maybe jealous of somebody in the media. And I was kind of like this to my friend David, like kind of I was saying, rah, 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 rah. And you know what? I realized when I got off the phone with him, I had to text him back and I said, "You know what? I'm guilty. I was speaking from a place of jealousy. And I had to be honest with myself." So even now, at 71 years of age, I have to watch out that I don't connive myself. that I'm honest. You know, Charlie did not hate. He only offered debate. But as Jesus said, the world hates me because I reveal to them that their deeds are evil. Jesus said the world doesn't not like me. Jesus said the world doesn't follow me. He said they hate me. So when I confront people now, I say, "Oh, you're a Jesus hater." "Oh, I don't hate Jesus. He's a good teacher." "Oh, he's a good teacher." Well, he must be a liar then, because he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." Now listen to this, folks. If you're listening, listen. These disciples, 11 of the 12 disciples, all died horrible deaths, refusing to, give up their faith or to deny that Jesus lived and he was the Messiah. 11 of the 12. John just happened to live as an old man, but he didn't deny Jesus. He was, matter of fact, the one that loved Jesus. But we're not talking about John the Baptist, we're talking about John the disciple. Okay, I've spoken far too long. Go ahead, Gary.
No, I'm just saying that basically what you're saying is true. But I tell you, I've realized in the last 2 years that I became a Christian when I was 9 or 10 years old.
Yes.
And I didn't even know it. I knew at the time what I'd done. And I remember it clearly when I asked Christ to come into my life. I had my back to the TV with Billy Graham on, my parents were watching, and I said the prayer. And that was it. Now, I went through a whole bunch of things up until I actually realized I became a Christian when I was 25, 26 years old in Ocala, Florida, in a cop. On the couch by myself at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Why?
But the point is, the point is just understanding things. But so when I was a cop in Ocala, I became what I thought was a new Christian. Now I realize I was a Christian as a child, because once you're in Christ's hands, nobody can remove them from there. You belong to Christ. And even though I didn't know it, didn't recognize it, I belonged to Christ. And somehow God had to be looking out for me, because my future out of high school was about as bright as a 10-watt light bulb. And I've done fairly well from where I came from. I'm very happy. I've had a wonderful life. I've got a wonderful family. I've had my problems like everybody, but minimum problems. But the thing is when I was going to the donut business and leaving the police department, it's a long story. I'm not going to go into that. But I was running into peaks where everything was great and the bottom would fall out. And everything was great and the bottom would fall out. That happened over the course of a year. Well, and each one got worse. And the next to the worst one was after I'd spent money to go to Alabama for training and came back. I sold my house. We bought a used trailer, moved 100 miles away to open a donut shop in Winter Haven, Florida. And anyway, I got a call from the franchise people who had all the money in the world that I got out of my house, $5,000 I sent them. They had my money. They said, "Sorry, we can't put a franchise there because of zoning." I didn't even know what zoning was at the time. Anyway, Don and I are sitting on the couch in our used trailer that I bought in a trailer park in Winter Haven with our 2 kids that were toddlers, and we were both distraught. And we were both crushed, and we didn't know what to do. We had no answers. I didn't know where to go from here, because this was, at that time, it was very difficult at that end of where we were. And I'm sitting there, and I didn't know what to do. And I reached over on the end stand next to the couch, and I picked the Bible up, and I closed my eyes, because maybe I saw it in a movie. I don't know. I closed my eyes, opened the Bible up, any page, and put my finger on it and opened my eyes and read it. Now, what are the coincidences? You know what it said? It's Matthew 10:29-31, and it says, "But not a single sparrow can fall to the ground without your Father knowing it, and the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are more valuable to God than a whole flock of sparrows." Don't be afraid. Now, hey, coincidence? I'll ask God, but what are the odds?
I think
Bible, what are the odds it would land on that?
I think he's so much God that he actually can be involved in the little things. That's what Jesus said. He said, "Yep." He said, "Not a sparrow falls to the ground without the Father's permission. Do you not know you are of much greater value than many sparrows, for the very hairs on your head are counted?" And now we know mathematically, look, they can take pictures of molecules within molecules within molecules now. They have the photographic equipment. It's insane. This whole place is insane with creation. And it's exploding every day. Do you know the universe is expanding every day? It's crazy.
Oh, I don't know, and I really don't care.
Well, we have little brains. Why do we care, right?
Why worry about? I've learned finally, and the Bible says it too. Why worry about things you can't control?
Right.
I've finally at 80, I've gotten wise enough to understand some of those things. And I'm dumber than I've ever been in my life, but I have more
Stop
wisdom
saying,
than I've ever had in my life. It's a fact. I'm not.
no, listen
No,
to
it's a
me.
fact.
Listen to me.
It's absolutely a fact.
Okay. I don't know if it's dumber. You're slow of mind. First of all, you're still overweight, even though you've lost a bunch of weight. Congratulations. But you're not walking like you used to. I know because it's me. I'm dull of mind because I'm a lazy fat guy. We got to get out there and start walking. Because, I was thinking at the beginning of the show, I said, you think your career's over. You know what I think? With the eyes of God that he's given me, and sometimes he lets me see things, I see a guy he'll wake up. You could have just like Charlie, you could have the greatest time of your life over the next 10 years and bring many young people. You're wise, you're old with white hair. I'm
Well, let me
old with
ask you.
white hair. You know what? Even girls now, they know when I go into Starbucks, they smile, but they know that I'm not trying to do it. I'm an old guy. I'm just there. Everybody's kind of neutral to me at this point. And it's like, I'm not there to seduce them. People can sense a love in you when you get older. I mean, you and I, we love people now. We don't want to take anything from them. We're not trying to gain any position. We both had positions of power and money. It doesn't, So you're at a position now. I think that you've come in the past year. You've come closer to Jesus than ever before. You go to two different churches on Sunday, one for the Bible study and then one for the church. I mean,
One for Sunday school, then I go to two Bible studies, three Bibles. We started one here at the shop. I go to 3 Bible studies a week,
yeah,
and we have discussion. I'm going to ask you a question, because God has done many things in my life, I believe, wholeheartedly, like the little thing I just mentioned, but and there's things beyond that, and you're aware of them, but I'm not going to go into all of them. But I can tell you this: constant, my intellect argues with my faith. I pray every day for God to strengthen my faith and help me, show me the way to strengthen my faith.
yes,
And yet my intellect, even though I've had all these personal experiences with God that I believe, and I know what I believe because I don't pray out loud in groups. And the reason I don't do it is because I can't pray without particularly feeling emotional. And also ask questions: am I praying for what they're going to listen to, or am I really talking to God? I like the privacy when I pray. When I'm driving the car, I talk with God a lot.
yeah.
No, I don't talk. I talk to God a lot. But but there's so many things that it's so hard. Listen, like life after death and eternal life. I have no idea. I can't relate to that. I don't think anybody can. And if they can, they're fooling themselves. I don't understand. I can't relate to why God would love us. I can't relate why Jesus would die for us. I can't relate to all these. They don't make sense to me as a human being with logic and common sense. Why would they do this? But yet I know they did because I believe it. And I tell people when I talk to them about Christ, I said, look, in my heart and my life, I know there's a God. I can't prove there's a God. That's why you learn by faith. And here's what I've learned too in my life. There's basically two things that bring people to Christ. One is when they reach bottom, when they are totally defeated and they've got no place to turn, they turn to God. I've seen it in the jail many, many times when I was sheriff. Also, the other thing that brings people to Christ are intellectuals that, and a lot of them don't believe in God and even hate him. And they go and they say they're going to go and prove God to be false. They get in the Bible to tear the Bible apart and become Christians.
That's Lee Strobel.
I've had 2 people I know personally that happened to. One was
Really?
an editor of a newspaper.
Look at that.
But anyway, it's and you know what? I'm at peace. If we have another world war, whatever happens, it's not going to change my life. First, I've had a wonderful. I've said for decades, if I die tomorrow, I've already won the game. I've had a wonderful life, a better life than I ever imagined or deserved. I married a wonderful woman.
Yeah, I know. And you're flipping back into you. You know what? But right now, God has cultivated a man with white hair, a man with great wisdom. Look, I'll tell you one thing about Gary Wheeler. Whether people know it, like it or not, Gary's honest. Gary, you're as honest as the day is long. I've never known you to lie or deceive, never. And you've been honest with yourself. When you come to your senses, you've gone astray here and there in your life, as I have. And if anybody out there would have the humility to know we all are sinners, we all fall short. But see, I see you right now, and I don't know what it is, but I do know this. You have potential to influence people in a great way. I do think that the two of us need to get out there and walk, because it'll sharpen our brain. David Walsh he lived to be 98. He was still running his business. Last year when he was 97, he said he had the most financially blessed year of his life. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but if he said
it, just for inflation, it probably isn't, but
there you go. But the point is, we would remark. I'd be talking to him last year, like you and I are talking. I said, David, you're 98. How can you have such clarity of mind more than a 50-year-old or 60-year-old? He says, I don't know, Rhett. And we laugh. We'd be on the show together, like doing it like right now, and I would grope for something, and he would come up with the right word or the right French phrase. It's just remarkable. I think that walking 2 miles every day, he wasn't doing that at 98, but he did it for about 15 years, from the time he was 70 till he was, 70, 89. So he did it for 20, maybe 23 years. He walked a couple of miles every day, up to about 6 years before he died.
Well, I downloaded something 2 weeks ago, and I vowed to myself, I vowed to myself to read this every morning. And before I go into that, I tell you, I come here at the shop every morning and I talk to people, and I tell them, I go in and I tell them, I find life's experiences. When you get old, you sit there and you talk, and they'll say something, a word or something that's happened that you relate to something in your past. So I tell them my stories.
Yeah.
And then I tell them at the end, I said, look, first, if I've already told you to stop, that there's no sense in wasting your time or my time. Secondly, I said, I have nothing new to share, period. And I don't remember everybody I talked to. And but here's the thing. I'll read it to you and then I'll show it to you. But I read this every morning because it's true. And it simply says, I spend a great deal of my life realizing I should have shut up 10 minutes ago.
I spend a great deal of my life realizing I should have shut up. I love that.
That is so true.
Would you send that to me, please?
Yeah, it's good advice. For sure, when you're living talking, I know. But I do. Every morning I get up, and when I turn my phone on, I read that just to remind me, because I got nothing to do but talk. And I do enjoy people, and I enjoy their history. I enjoy their stories. I enjoy what motivates people. Who did you marry? And where are you from? I did that in Florida. Here's a funny thing, though, in talking to all these people. In Florida, I always ask, where are you from? Because everybody in Florida is from someplace else. I moved there with 4.5 million people in the state. So I ask people here, because Florida, you say, where are you from? Germany, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Puerto Rico, South America. They're all over the world. They come to Florida. I ask people here, I said, are you from Tennessee? No. Oh, where are you from? Blunttville. That's 10 miles from here. I say, are you from here? And they'll say, no. I said, where? Well, Blunttville or Lisbethton but the people are moving to Tennessee like they were to Florida. Tennessee is exploding. In fact, I've said the last year, and I really think this, and I love it here. It's great here. But if I'd have known 14 years ago when I moved up here, the growth was going to be like this, I don't think I would have moved here. I'd have found someplace a little, the growth, the traffic here has more than doubled since I lived here. Well, they aren't building homes here; they're building neighborhoods.
Yeah, they don't build homes; they build neighborhoods. Yeah, same thing's happening in Vero now, though. They're letting all these builders come in and rape our lands, and
that's what I was opposed to when I was on the commission. Fought against it constantly, because these builders come in, they buy property, they bring their own developers in, their own realtors in, their own construction workers in, their own real estate companies. And then they build it out in 2 or 3 years, and then they leave the county with the problem because they did shoddy work because they're moving on.
Yeah, well, I know. Remember Mason Simpson?
That name rings a bell.
He built all those places on the beach. He had a big house that even had a movie theater down in the basement. He sponsored my show for a few years, and he was a Kentucky boy who'd gotten an education. And then he had this big mansion. And I was sitting there with DeVosta, the guy DeVosta Builders.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so he's sitting next to me. Mason's sitting next to me. And we're at a ball game to see the Dodgers. And he says, next year, we're going to make $200 million. Next year, we're going to make $200 million. So I'm sitting here with waves of inferiority going, wow. I mean, why do because I'm a talk host, I get to be with these people. And I'm thinking, wow, 200 million. And you know what? They built these things down in Fort Pierce. This was before the economic collapse. And one day they sold them all. They each made $100 million, those guys. But now Mason was a sweetheart of a guy, but here he had all this dough. And you know what? He was on his motorbike, I just found out a few years ago, with his kids. He had 7 kids, married a younger lady so he could have kids because he didn't do it when he was younger, and went over the side of the mountain, And I think about what Jesus said to that rich guy. Rich guy said, I'm going to build more barns to store up all my stuff. I got all this stuff and all this money, and I'm going to build. And Jesus said, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. What will you give in exchange for your soul? I mean, Jesus said, why do you work for that which you cannot keep? So there's a line. It's great to feed your family, but
in my memories,
do you really need a Bugatti, a $3 million Bugatti?
In my lifetime, when I look back over my life, the absolute happiest, best time of my life that I cherish to this day was when Donna and I had 2 little kids and we had nothing. When I was a cop in Ocala, I had $15 for groceries every 2 weeks, give or take $1. When we opened the donut shop in Vero Beach, again, we were back in a used trailer and so on and so forth. And we took the kids in the morning. At 1 o'clock in the morning, we'd take our 2 kids. They were 2 and 3 years old, go to the donut shop with us with their blankets. They was the little tiny storeroom. We had 450 square feet. They would go in there and spend the rest of the night sleeping on the flour bags with their little blankets while Donna and I made donuts and getting our business started. We were probably there a week or better before we got our first employee. But and we had nothing, and but you're so busy and you're raising kids and you're making a living. You don't have time to worry about all the world problems, and you're busy with life itself. And it's the best time of my life. And I remember when the bumper stickers came out. My kids were teenagers then. I guess the first one I ever saw. I don't know when they came out, but it said if I'd known how much fun grandchildren were, I'd have had them first. And I'd see that, and I said, you know what? I said, I really did. I looked at it, I said, I love my grandkids. Oh, I had a ball with them. But I can't say that I had more fun with them. I had more fun with my own kids. And I spent a lot of time with my grandkids. But now, setting up here in the last 2 years, I've had an epiphany, and I said, you know what? There is one thing that made grandchildren more fun than my children. I could afford to do things with my grandchildren I could not afford to do with my children.
And I understand that, and that is fun. But you know what? It's kind of like I was in the home of the former baseball commissioner, also the former CEO of Columbia Motion Picture Companies. I mean, a gazillionaire living in a place where only billionaires live. And I'm doing an interview with him. Now, he has a younger wife who was a nasty, not nice person. She just had misery all over her face. Of course, that's what happens. Maybe she was with him for the money. But that's conjecture on my part. Oh, he was miserable, not nice at all. Anyway, so I'm in this guy doing this interview, and I went into the bathroom, and I'm standing in the bathroom. That's what guys do. We stand. And I'm saying to God, I can't wait to get out of this mansion. I want to go back to my little teeny tiny radio studio and see my friend Jody, who's was like family, worked with me for 10 years, and other friends. And I said, I love my little life. This is a casket. This is like a casket, a living casket. People, Bob Dylan said what you said at the beginning of the show. Bob Dylan said, he who is not busy being born is busy dying. He who is not busy being born is busy dying. And I don't care what age you are. 80. You just had a birthday, right? You turned 80 or 81?
80.
80. Happy birthday.
Donna's 79.
And by the way, today is Barbara's birthday. Maybe later on, if anybody's listening who knows, you give her a little call and say, happy birthday to you. Anyway, Where was I going with all this? I
You're getting old.
You know what I do? I tell my niece, my nephew, Barbara, I've started this thing. And this is going to become famous long after I'm dead. But I'm the guy that started it. I say, if I'm repeating a story, they go like this. I'll be on the phone now with my niece, and she'll go, Pinky, Uncle Rhett, Pinky, Pinky.
I think I'll use that.
And Barbara goes like this. And I go, oh. And that way I said, look, I don't mind, because I don't want to have to go through all the effort I do of dramatizing a story and putting all this effort to find out. Yeah, Uncle Rhett, that's the fourth time you've told me that story.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you get older.
Well, let me give you some encouragement about being old.
Yeah.
This is one of the best things I've read in a long time.
Yeah.
On the internet, of course. It says, don't worry about getting old. It doesn't last that long.
You know what I worry about heaven? I said, I like it down here. I'm just getting to know the rules at 71.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to die, God. I want to work. So I just hope and pray. Now, Debbie Maycomber, the famous author, 240 million copies, 8 to 11 of her movies, Hallmark movies.
That was a big.
She said the Lord revealed to her that she's going to write books in heaven. I don't know. Cuckoo. She's going to write books in heaven. But the last thing in the world I want to do is be somewhere where, when you go in and you die in the hospital and it goes, it's flatline. I worry that the Bible says there will be no tears, because there's tears, there's laughter. And because there's valleys. Oh, I'm down in a valley, but I'll be up on the mountaintop again soon. I'm down. Well, I want there to be valleys because I want there to be mountains, and I want there to be mountains because I like the green growth in the valleys. So I don't know. I hope we're not flatlined up in heaven. I hope God doesn't get mad at me at saying these things, because I'm just dust, Father. Remember, I'm just dust. I'm dull of mind, and I'm just trying to figure things out here. But
does your intellect argue with your faith?
Well, the Bible says the mind of man is enmity with the Spirit of Christ. Let me say it again. The mind of man is enmity with the Spirit of Christ. Back in the 60s, I went to Woodstock, remember? And I will be honest, I had relationships with many, many girls. Vassar campus when I was 14. Anyway, so what was the point I was going to make? I don't remember what I was going to say.
If there's any young people watching this, they're going to learn a lot just from getting old.
I don't know. I was going to make a point. What was the point?
It'll come to you if you quit thinking about it. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll think of one. Don and I are coming back from New York. We go by James Madison University. And I tell Don, I said, that's where what's his face's daughter goes to college. And Donna says, yeah, it is. Now, what's his name? Now, what's his name is, and God willing, it'll come to me before I finish this. He and his wife, when they were girlfriend and boyfriend, came to my donut shop when they were in high school. I was shortly on a short time with him on the volunteer ambulance squad. He was a deputy sheriff. He was a lieutenant, or I made him lieutenant in charge of accreditation. I'd known him for 35, 40 years. Came into the shop with his children. Now, he was a deputy long before I was sheriff. And so anyway, I called for an hour. I'm trying to think of his name. Couldn't think of it. Now, I know him personally. We've socialized. We've done things over the. Couldn't think of his name. So I called Chuck Gibbons. And when Chuck answered the phone, God, see, there it is, because I'm thinking about it. I can't remember his name now. And anyway, when Chuck answered the phone, I said, I wish Donna was here. This drives me nuts. And every time I've told the story, I get the name when I get to this point. It just pops in my mind. It's not doing it now.
Just tell the story.
But anyway, when Chuck answered the phone, I asked him, I said, Chuck, what is Rhett Palmer's name? Whoever the name I was thinking of, I asked him, what is his name? And I gave him his name when I asked him what it was, without thinking.
Yeah.
And it
What's
just,
Rhett Palmer's name?
and I read it now. I'm ashamed. I can't think of it because I've known him for years and years and years, and I respect him. He's a great guy. And that's the other thing. It's crazy because we sat there the other day and stuff was on television, and I came up with a name of somebody I've never met or whatever, a personality from 30 years ago, and the name just popped in my head, and I asked Donna the question. Then other people I've known for 30 years I grasped for their
You
name.
want to know why?
Rick Lane is who it was.
There you go. Doesn't mean a hill of beans to any of us.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to know why? Memory almost full. Memory almost full. You ever get that warning?
Or brain deteriorated.
Memory almost full.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's the last humbling before you die, you know? This whole thing with not being able to remember stuff and not being able to walk. All of a sudden, you go up the stairs and you realize you got to hold on to the. I never knew what railings were for. I thought they were just ornamental. And now I'm an old guy. I was walking up where this house that we're renting up in Vermont, this home, and I have to walk up multiple steps to get into the house. And beautiful railing. Well, I have to hold on tight to that railing. When I go up,
I won't go up downstairs without hanging on a railing.
When
I don't like stepping off the curb as a car that I can put my hand on. I've fallen 3 times in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
it's part of life. I'm not complaining. But here's something, Rhett, that I realized the last several months.
what?
The blessing I've had opening this bagel shop. I'm here 7 days a week. I come down every morning. My son's doing the heavy lifting here now. But I sit out and I talk to my customers, like I said, and bringing back memories and things that they spark. I realized I've sat here for the last 10, 11, 12 years here in this business talking to people, reliving memories in my head I never, ever, ever would have thought again. If people hadn't been in here and talking and it makes me appreciate my life so much more because things I never would have thought about before.
Well, you know what I'm going to do?
It's great to have the memories.
You know what I'm going to do? As the mayor of the airwaves, I've been on the air for 31 years, okay? So I'm going to stop in and officially make you the mayor of the bagels or whatever other name you want. And we'll actually put this on the wall there, and we'll have a certain seat that we designate for the mayor. And we're actually going to, Eric and I will work on this, your son, and maybe we'll take a T-shirt, have it painted on there, and it'll say "Mayor of the Bagels," and you'll be sitting in there, and people can come and confer with the mayor in the morning.
We had, when you talk about the last 4 or 5 years, they do the newspaper local, they do a thing to sell your ads, but they do a thing on what's the best restaurant, what's the best this, what's the best. And for the last 4 or 5 years, excluding this year, we had somebody else win it this year. I'll explain that. But anyway, for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been the #1 bagels shop in the Tri-City area here.
Yeah.
Now this year there was another fella because he's a young guy and they bought a bagel shop over, and their bagels are bake off and so on. But anyway, he had all his friends. He's a young guy. He's 20, 21 years old. They were calling in and voting and voting and voting. So he won this year. 1 year, Eric pointed out to him, we run it twice 1 year. How do you win it twice in 1 year? Well, we won it. We were #1. #3 was a coffee shop that served our bagels. Also, several years ago, 5 years or 3, wherever it was, the Tennessee Magazine, which I didn't even know existed at the time, somebody brought a copy in, had us as one of the top 10 bagel stores in the state of Tennessee.
Wow, that's great.
And I didn't know about it. But we don't promote.
Listen, okay, David Hunter, the former U.S. diplomat, has entered the studio. Now, you can stay with us if you want. We're going to talk about international affairs. Remember, he was a diplomat to 5 different nations, lives in Vero Beach, Florida, and he's walking into the studio, so he'll be there live. But you got to do me a favor. Last time I started getting emails, and because they look like you were either dozing off or doing other things.
Well, I was just listening. I didn't know I was on the air.
Okay, well, will be visually on the air, and you will be audibly. So make sure you continue to look at the screen, no matter how boring it is to look at me and David. Okay.
Do you want me to just bring David in, and we'll go ahead and start?
I think we should just continue on with David Hunter, and. If you can visually
you got it. Yep. We'll go ahead and bring David in, and I'll just change things up on the screen here.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Doolin.
You're going to give
By
us
the
My
way,
pleasure.
And Doolin, we got to get you a mic. I want you to participate.
I have
Doolin,
one.
Huh?
I have one. I have one here. I have one in the control room.
Oh, when did that happen?
A long time ago, Red. Like before you left for Vermont.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. Where do you think I'm talking to you from most of the time? I'm in the control room.
Well, that's good.
Hang on. Give me one second here. Go ahead.
What?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead and put David on.
I'm working on it.
Okay. And make sure there's no microphone blocking his face, would you?
I think we're good
what
here.
did David do again, Rhett? What did you say?
David is a former U.S. diplomat to Spain, South
Spain.
Korea, Pakistan, India, and Ukraine.
Okay.
And he lived in all those places.
Wow.
He says he comes from a Republican background, and I think he now stop picking your ear, would you? And he said he thinks he's still a conservative. A lot of people listen to us believe he's a far left. He says no, he's not. He's down the middle. But we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. If he has any thoughts? Usually we stay away from domestic affairs. Of course, what's happening now? How this the death of Charlie. Now you got 3 million people who showed up in Britain, the biggest gathering of humans ever in Britain over the death of Charlie. This man was a major influence.
Yes,
And he can't be denied. Even in India, there's other places where they're having these protests. But we're still waiting to see David visually, or when Doolin's working.
He's up on the screen.
There he is, the handsome David. David, put your microphone in front of you, would you?
Hey. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Wheeler.
Good morning. How are you?
And good morning, Rhett.
You can-
He's still
yes,
getting the screen adjusted, so we're not quite going live yet.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, we're live?
We're
Oh,
live.
okay.
I'm just doing it in the middle of the show here.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
There we go,
David,
David.
you let your hair grow long. It looks really cool.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, you look really good.
Where are you
thank
from
you.
originally, David? We're not on the air yet. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's
No,
to
we
fit
are on
my,
there. But go, David, he
Rhett,
wants to know where you're from, David.
Rhett, that's to fit my liberal image. So if I'm going to be called a liberal, I'm going to be looking like one.
Get a haircut, you hippie.
Well, you know what? We did, and this should be. We are, by the way, on the air, Gary. We are on. David and I have had some big battles. We've been doing this together for 7 years, 8 years. I don't know how many years we've been doing this, David, but many.
It's
many
I would say it's at least 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
Okay, now we have had some battles where he almost got up and walked out, or I almost kicked him out. And we made an agreement, and we have a covenant. No matter how upset we get, that we have agreed when the cameras go off and we get off air, we shake hands. We say friendship is above our differences, and if we can do that, David and I, then the whole world can do that. It's debate. It's not hate.
Yeah.
I don't hate David. David doesn't hate me. It's debate and not hate.
Yeah. And,
But I don't think you and I have agreed on everything, Rhett. Just not on the air.
yeah. Well, let me throw something in here. I don't get into domestic politics very much, but you did mention with this Charlie Kirk and the fact that they were, people in England and other places that were expressing support for him, and he does have, the what's called the UKIP, which is the UK Independence Party of the Nigel Farage. That is a conservative group that is gaining power in England as we speak. I lived in England, by the way. I went to the London School of Economics way back in the day. So I'm very interested in that. And the fact that Trump is going to visit King Charles.
He's there now.
Yeah, he just took off this morning. Yeah, he's not there yet, but he just took off from...
No, it was yesterday.
Oh, that was yesterday he took off?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
He's there. They were
yes.
having dinner last night.
Oh, okay. All right.
I met King Charles in Vero Beach.
Did you meet him in Vero? No
Actually,
kidding.
Indian River Shores. Yeah,
He was-
welcome to the county.
He was the prince at the time playing
Right.
playing polo down there at Windsor, as I remember.
Correct.
So you were the official greeter as the sheriff of Indian River
I
County?
was chairman of commission then, and I think, I'm not sure, but I think I gave him an orchid or something. I don't remember clearly.
Yeah.
Somebody told me I should do that, but anyway, I did meet him, and I know I met him and I shook his hand, and then later somebody says you're not supposed to shake their hand or touch them. Then I found out later that the Queen was shaking hands. Doesn't make any difference. But anyway, I did.
Yeah.
I don't, obviously we didn't go have coffee together, but I did get to meet him and say hi and welcome to the county.
Well,
Yeah.
I got to sleep in the same room that he slept in at the Homestead, which is a great grand hotel, and they put me up in the presidential suite because I was there to do interviews. And when I was doing the interviews, the chef said his favorite juice was Hale Groves. I said, Hale Groves are a sponsor of my show. And here's this world famous chef. But anyway, I stayed in the same room that King Charles, Prince Charles stayed in, and Ronald Reagan and Billy Graham, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So big deal. You know.
Yeah. Well, the going back to the Charlie Kirk thing, and you mentioned, how you and I disagree. I was talking to my cousins who were visiting me, and they're conservatives and Christian, very Christian, from Virginia, and they just were down here visiting me this weekend. And,
Wonderful.
We talked a tiny bit about that, and the point is, I use the comparison that Charlie Kirk reminds me of a modern day William Buckley. If you remember William Buckley in Firing Line. He was a conservative, very knowledgeable.
And a savant, not an idiot savant, but a savant.
He was a savant. He was knowledgeable about subjects. In this case with Charlie Kirk, he had a good Christian background, and he was conservative, but he wasn't way off on the far right, And I mention this because there were some people that were rumoring that this assassin of Kirk's was somehow tied into the Groyper movement, Groyper, Groypers, and we had a couple of Groypers. This is a further right group, far right. Charlie Kirk is not far right. He's what I call central, balanced right, and accepts the debate between, and he encourages people from other views and talks about why he thinks that they don't argue.
Debate and not hate. Debate, no hate.
And show respect for the other people if they have a different opinion. But when you get to the far right, that Groyper group, they were anti-Semitic, they were neo-Nazis. This was a guy named Nick Fuentes. That's the leader of the Groypers, Nick Fuentes. And Fuentes and a guy, this black fellow kind of ambushed Trump by holding a meeting with him, a luncheon with him down in Mar-a-Lago a few years back. You remember that. And you were ambushed because this Groypers guy was in your studio, and I'm the one that told you, boy, what are we doing talking to this guy? Because he's not what you called a rational, calm, fair-minded person. He's to the extreme. And that's my goal and yours, Rhett, is we like to stay in the center of the airplane or on the edges of the plane, but not way out on the fringes. That's the difference. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, go ahead,
how
Gary.
How would you define far right? And could you give me some specific examples?
Well, okay, I can say very clearly that anybody who's blatantly anti-Semitic and who is a fascist and a Nazi is far right. That's what I call beyond the fringe. They are not considered to be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I just want to be. I'd never heard the phrase Groyper or whatever before. This is
Groyper.
No, okay, I would agree totally with you.
Yeah. Well, you can look it up. It's Groyper was. I didn't know much about him. Groyper, and they're
Groy
Groyper, 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 and their logo is Pepe the Frog, Pepe the Frog, and you see that occasionally, and you did earlier, years ago when we were having this guy on the show. Pepe the Frog was a logo of the Groyper movement, and on the alt-right channels, you'd occasionally see this guy Pepe the Frog popping up, and but as I say, that's fringe, and Charlie Kirk was not fringe. He was Turning Point was a mainstream political movement. He was embracing the younger crowd. The Groypers were also trying to get these young men as the demographic. they were going after them because they're impressionable people. They don't know, young men don't.
All young people.
And one thing about Charlie, though, he was asked earlier this year, what would he like to be remembered? And he goes, you mean if I die? He goes, courage to have my faith. He put faith way above politics.
Yeah.
He only believed in conservative values because of his relationship with Jesus Christ. I mean, this guy, he said he wasn't, I thought he was Catholic, but last night I saw something. He says, well, I'm not Catholic, but blah, blah, blah. So the media's been wrong saying that he was Catholic. I don't think he liked to categorize himself in any camp. I go to a Catholic church up here, but I also go to a non-denominational back in Vero. I go to a Presbyterian church in Vero sometimes. I also go to it doesn't really matter. But anyway, enough of that. Where were we going with this? I don't.
Well,
David.
we were just, you'd mentioned that at the beginning about Charlie Kirk, and I just wanted to kind of throw in my 2 cents on that, and the fact that there are Christian conservatives, and that's a growing movement even over in Europe, and I'm all for that, but I'm not for anti-Semitism and fascism and Nazi, and that's the other.
That I don't understand that far right, because there was a kid in Vero, a very bright young man, who was coming on my show with frequency. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize, I'm almost, as you said, I'm almost a Zionist. I believe that the land that God gave, I do believe this. I believe God gave that land a long, long time ago to the Hebrews. And so anyway, but this guy was anti-Jewish. I said, and then that guy came out, who's the black rap singer that's a multi-billionaire?
Kanye West.
Yeah, like he was suggesting some things that he was anti-Israel.
Yeah, that's Kanye West and Nick Fuentes. Those are the two. The Groypers and Kanye West, they both had the similar ideology, and it was very anti-Semitic.
How can you believe in Jesus, who was a Jew, and hate Jews? First of all, anybody that uses a wide brush, I don't understand, Go ahead, Gary.
No, my thinking is, as I said earlier, I know what I believe, and I believe it to be factual. I'm not saying it's factual. I'm saying what I believe. And I believe God helped with brilliant young men of European descent. When they started the United States of America, God had his hand in it. And I believe our purpose is to be a part of protecting Israel and the Jews.
Yeah. Well, apparently, all the presidents henceforth, even Obama, they all said that they will protect Israel.
Right. Well, we've had some debates about that because, I've explained on the show a number of times I'm quite critical of Benjamin Netanyahu and what he's doing and the killing of children and the starving of children, all this mistreatment that's going on. And we talk about that, and the international community, meaning the world at large, except for the United States, is very critical of Netanyahu and what he's doing. And we need to understand that and not sit there and say, the world is wrong and we're right. In fact, the Jews of Israel, they're claiming more and more the whole world hates us. Now, the fact is the world does not hate the Jews. The world is upset with the way the Jews of Israel, what are called the Israelites, you might call them that they are behaving in this, what I call a war of annihilation. And that's what it's turning out to be, an annihilation of the Palestinians that were the original inhabitants of that land. Now, Rhett mentioned that he thinks that, God gave the land to the Jews. That's a very important part of this Zionist concept. The Zionists are arguing, and they've been away for 1,800 years. Keep this in mind. There were very few Jews living in that Mandate Palestine area since the time of the Romans and the Maccabean Revolt. The Maccabean Revolt, where they all jumped off the cliff. After that was in about 175 AD. After that, the Jews were wandering Jews. They were sent off to Africa, to Tunisia, and migrated across finally to Spain and up into Europe. And so the Jews were not in the Middle East. And the Palestinians and the Arabs lived there for 1,800 years with very few Jews. even at the time of the foundation of Israel in 1947 and a little earlier than that, 1930s, there were only about 50,000 Jews living in that area. And how Israel got up to 7 million, which is what its population of Jews is today, is through immigration. A lot of them came from outside, from Europe, Eastern Europe, Poland and Russia. They're called the Ashkenazi Jews. And they don't really have a tradition of living in the Middle East. They're really more Europeanized because they grew up for centuries living in Eastern Europe. And so, their ability to blend into a Middle Eastern culture is not very good. So my own feeling is that, I don't think that our approach should be that, the Jews should bulldoze down every Palestinian property and throw all the Palestinians out into the sea or send them off to Somaliland or something. I don't think that's a good approach. I think that, we need to find a balance and a compromise. And unfortunately, the people on the far right in Israel, that's called they're called reformist Zionists, and that's a particularly strong view that the Jews should only live in Palestine and nobody else. Nobody else has the right to. I think that's wrong, and the United States has got to take a balanced position on this. And the rest of the world is supporting what I'm saying. They're saying that, an extremist Zionist that wants to push every non-Jew out of Palestine, that is going to create animosity for centuries. The Jews are never going to be safe because
it's a bad look. I used to be in public relations, and this is a PR nightmare. And this ghost of this is going to follow the Jews for a long time. I don't know what to say. I know if you have this is me. I say if you have cancer, do you want the doctor to go in and just take part of the cancer out? No, take all the cancer out. Now, constantly there's been this conflict, and of course, what brought it to a head was that attack on the 1,200 people that were murdered, killed, raped, whatever it was. Right. And of course, they're going to. I can't help but think, particularly with the Jews being as bright as they are, couldn't they have had? What do you call that secret group they have? The
Mossad. The Mossad.
Couldn't have they gone surreptitiously in a clandestine operative and gone into Hamas and just taken out these bad guys one on one?
Yeah, I think that's the difference, and I think that was much more targeted and efficient. What they did with those radios that blew up, that was a very efficient operation to get rid of some of the high operatives. What they actually did in order to with some of these targeted assassination attempts is they were able to hack the phones of the bodyguards of the high-level Hamas.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But this is why Trump now, who's a very gutsy guy, and I know we all know, what are you doing? And he's blowing up these boats because thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of young people are dying every month still in America taking these drugs. And these guys, these cartels have been able to get away with it, whether it was Reagan, whether it was Carter, whether it was Bush, whether it was Clinton, whether it was the Bushes again, whether it was whatever it was. He's coming and saying, no. And you know what? Sometimes you have to put the fear of God in them. And I'll tell you what, if you've got a family and you're down there now and you're going to go, well, he's paying me $75,000 a year to bring those illicit drugs in. And then his wife's going to go, look, I'd rather have you here earning $20,000 a year and be alive for the children than up there. Get away from these guys. It's kind of like these soldiers. I have no idea, like these soldiers in Russia. These beautiful young soldiers in Ukraine.
Okay,
these beautiful young soldiers all dying for nothing, for old men.
Okay, Rhett, you're on a good point here, and since we have the sheriff, I'd like to get his input and thoughts on this too.
Thank you, because I'm chomping at the bit.
Huh?
David, let me ask you just as quickly as I can, but a couple of things I want to point out.
Sure.
I don't have your background or your knowledge, I'm sure, about worldwide politics and everything else. But when I see what happened with over and over again with the Palestinian people that elected the people that are in there, I'm sure there's innocent people in Palestine that aren't a part of Hamas. But the point is they went in and started this whole thing with an atrocity with over 2,000 people killed. The Jews have gone in, or Israel, or whatever, they've gone in and they have, as humanely as possible, fought their enemy. And we set back, and people in this world set back and condemn them for that. And the propaganda, in my mind, and you would know better than me, but when CNN and all these places all over the world are saying they're starving the children, they're doing this, the other side of that story that I get is the opposite of that. They're doing everything they can to preserve it, and Hamas is stealing the food. And I don't know what the truth is because I'm not there. I only know what I hear, and I try to hear both sides and apply common sense. But just like the people in the United States and other, when you're at war, there's no such thing in my mind. And I'm a hard right, I guess hard right. I don't know, but I'm not. When you're in war, you're in there for one reason, and that is to defeat your enemy. And in World War II is the last war this country's had. And we were there to defeat our enemy. We did blanket bombing of cities in Germany and killed hundreds of thousands, probably, or at least thousands, just like the Germans did to England before we blanket bombed Germany. And we also dropped the atomic bomb on 2 cities in Japan and killed probably hundreds of thousands of people, civilians, to win a war. And the people in that country are responsible for the government they have, whether or not the government's tyranny or republic or communist, doesn't make any difference. Ultimately, the masses of people control everything, whether they know it or not, and eventually they do. It's just like in this country, tax the billionaires. Well, the people that pay the bills in this country are middle-class working people because there's more of them, even though they're paying small. But so that's just my thought on it. I'm not.
Yeah,
making
this is
what I see. That's why I wanted to ask you.
Right. Yeah. Let me go back. Let me go back and address this point because Rhett and I have talked about this Hiroshima and the also the bombing of Dresden. That was the one you're thinking of.
Dresden was horrible.
The fire bombing of Dresden, and also we had a
unnecessary.
Wait a minute. We had also a non-nuclear fire bombing of Tokyo. That was a massive, destructive. Now
Tokyo was non. Did they had? I thought they dropped the atomic bomb on Tokyo.
No, they dropped it. They did a fire bombing. The fire bombing was actually a different technique. And it was the similar approach that was done in Dresden. Dresden was caused by a giant fire by dropping essentially like inflammable bombs and fuel bombs that caused the fire. In the case of Japan, most of their cities were made out of wood, so they were very flammable. And to some extent, the military was kind of experimenting with these techniques at the time. And the use of the atomic bomb, I know a lot of people, the traditional claim is that, well, look, we wanted to save the troops if we'd have had to fight at the shores of Saipan, as we know. I was just at the Navy SEAL Museum yesterday, and I watched
sorry on that one.
Some of the reenactments of the terrible losses that we suffered going after Japanese island to island. In the Pacific with our troops, and so in some arguments, by using the weapons that we now had available, the atomic bombs, we were able to bring the war to a quick close. Now, I buy that argument, but I also have in my own mind, and as a Christian and as a diplomat, I have very serious reservations about using weapons of mass destruction against civilian populations as a way to win a war. Okay,
I do too.
The war is with the political elites and with the military, and to bring the whole civilian population into it and make them into victims and hostages, that's a hard thing for me to reconcile. So I'm not happy.
Agree.
I'm not happy with America's history. We're the only country that has ever used nuclear weapons in war.
Yes.
Thank God. Thank God. It could happen again any day. But
yes.
But I'm against the use of weapons of mass destruction as a form of combat. I think it's immoral.
I agree.
What I want to know is all this dying, literally, 1 million on both sides, Russia and Ukraine. what does Putin want, for crying out loud? Why is he doing this? And now he entered Poland. He's doing the same thing he did there. I think that Putin has become, maybe he's off his rocker a little bit and he wants to leave some sort of a legacy, even if it's being an evildoer or something before he leaves. You know, he's my age or maybe a couple of years older. And does anybody understand what the heck this guy wants? Why can't we get to the bottom of it?
Yeah, we've said before on the show, we talked about Putin a lot, over the years. And I served in Ukraine, by the way, Mr. Wheeler.
You lived there.
I was at the embassy in Kiev,
Yep.
and I know Ukrainians well.
And you and I have both been in Moscow and Russia.
Yeah, and I speak Russian. And I actually wrote a book about U.S. economic pressure on Russia, or on the USSR at the time.
They should bring you back now.
Yeah, they should. They should. I could give them some advice. I'm hopeful that what Trump is now proposing to do is what's called tariffs, secondary tariffs on the buyers of Russian oil and gas.
What do you think of that?
I think that's a good idea. And what Trump is saying, he pointed this out recently, said, well, I'll be willing to cut imports of Russian oil and gas, and I'll even pressure the Indians and Chinese to stop buying Russian oil and gas, but I want the Europeans to stop buying Russian oil and gas. This is a problem most people don't know about. The Europeans continue to buy Russian gas. They have a deal that provides for the termination of imports of Russian gas in 2027. This is 2 years from now. So they're right now still importing. They import a massive amount of Russian gas, and that provides Russia with cash to fight his war.
Funding the war.
Funding the war. Now, the big funders of the war are India and China. And as I said, China probably provides $100 billion in purchases of energy from Russia, $100 billion. And India buys something like $40 billion in energy from Russia. And that's $140 billion in Putin's pocket. And his war probably only costs him about 50 or 60 billion a year. So our buying oil and gas is helping Putin afford to keep fighting. That's the argument. So, but of course, if India's, I know Indians well. I served in India. That's why being around the world gives you a lot of understanding. The Indians are saying, well, look, the Russians have oil and it's cheap. They're willing to sell it at below the world market price. And we need oil. We're a poor country. We're trying to, improve our economy, and we're living, per capita income is probably $100 a week or $100 a month or something. It's not. They're a lot of poor in India. It's a billion. There's 1,300,000,000 people there, and most of them are very poor. I've lived there myself. I know how poor they are. So if Trump wants to ask India to stop buying the cheap Russian oil, we should say, okay, we'll supply you that oil. We've got oil in America.
Siri, in American dollars, what's the average income of an Indian person? Hey Siri,
yeah.
Hey Siri, what is the average income of a man in India making annually in U.S. dollars?
There's a reliable source.
Here's an answer from catabook.com.
I think it's 3,000 something a year.
Yeah, 3,000 a year. I said it's
almost 4,000.
Yeah, and that's probably a high estimate. I don't think it's quite that high, but maybe, the Indians have been growing rapidly. Their economy has been growing rapidly. I served back there in the 1990s. So, in
Haiti, it's less than it's $300 a year. That's less than $1 a day, about 80 cents a day.
Did you say it was average? Did you say it was $300 a year?
In Haiti.
Oh, in Haiti. Okay, yeah. Well, see, Haiti.
That's another. All these people are dying. I was a missionary there a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I say something. How come we're not doing something with Haiti? Why don't we intervene and go get those bad guys out of there? These are evil, bad guys.
Yeah. Now let me go back, since we've talked about Russia and I mentioned the sanctions, and that's what I think needs to be done.
I know why nobody cares about Haiti.
All right, wait a minute, Rhett.
They get any money from it.
Nobody cares about Haiti, but we do care about Russia and Ukraine, and the solution. What I've said is Trump is now proposing is this economic sanctions or tariffs, and that may help to bring Putin to a compromise where he stops. He sees that there's no benefit in getting further and further into Ukraine, and we're also supplying more weapons and longer range weapons. So, but Putin is a heartless guy. I mean, he is killing women and children, sending these drones attacks, Shahid drone attacks, to hit kindergartens and hospitals and nurseries and all kinds of stuff. It's terrible. He is a heartless man, and I hope he will have a reconciliation with his maker and be harshly treated for.
I have a question for you,
Yeah.
David, when you get a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the inconsistencies, which ties back into biblical prophecies and all this other stuff in my mind, but anyway, don't go into all that. One of the things that surprises me, all we hear is a country of 7-8 million people doing something with an area in their country. The Palestinians are what, a couple of million people, and the atrocities going on day after day after day after day. We hear nothing from the public or from all the news media about the atrocities going on from Russia to Ukraine. More people being killed in Ukraine and Russia, and nobody talks about that or the atrocities. He was the aggressor, everything. They all, which goes back to, and I'm no authority on anything, particularly the Bible, but I can tell you that one of the things that gave credibility to the Bible to me is Genesis 22. It's one of the few chapters I can remember. As a matter of fact, I can't quote it, but basically it's after Abraham was stopped from sacrificing his only son, and God made 3 promises to him: to multiply the seed. Secondly, the second promise was, he didn't say sometimes or what, he said, you will always control the gate of your enemy. The Jews have never been defeated. They've been dispersed. They've been all over the world. They've never been defeated as a people. And there's never been, if there is, you can correct me, another bloodline population or religion as old as the Jews going back. And the third thing was that his offspring would be a blessing to all nations of the world. Now, you can correct me on any of this, because I only know what I read. I don't know what's accurate or not.
Right.
But I'm thinking the first time I read that, he was talking about Jesus Christ. And maybe he was. But I also think maybe he was talking way into the future, because the Jews are about 0.2% of the population of the world and hold in the neighborhood of 32% of the Nobel Peace Prizes. So many positive things because of Jews have happened in this world, and their brain power, intellect, the things they've done, the best doctors, lawyers, musicians, they excel. A percentage of them, not all of them, but a percentage of them more than any other particularly bloodline of people, we'll say, or however you want to. But anyway, that's my question is that inconsistency between Russia and Ukraine and Israel and
well, you've covered a lot of different points. Let's go back to the first one, which is the coverage of Russia and Ukraine. It is being covered very heavily if you're in the right channels, and by that I'm talking about Europeans are very much focused on the Russia-Ukraine situation because they are fearful that when Putin takes over all of Ukraine, that's just the first bite of the apple. He's going to be taking the Baltics, Lithuania and Latvia, and he's going to take over Poland, and he may want to reconstruct the Soviet Union. There's some people that say what Putin really wants as an ex-KGB guy is he wants to reconstruct the old Soviet Union, and all of those countries would live under the subjugation of Russia. Right. Now the irony is that if you look at the map and you see Russia today is a massive colonial empire that started out in the 1600s as the principality, meaning the princes of Muscovy, were owning a small territory near Moscow, and then they started spreading out, and you had the czars spread out mostly to the east, and they spread all the way until they got to Alaska. That was under I think Catherine the Great or somebody like that was going all the way out to take over. I'm not sure who was the czar that took over Alaska. So Russia today, not the Soviet Union, Russia today is an imperial empire, a massive area. It took over land after land and people after people as it spread out. Okay, and there's some arguments that imperial empires that are so spread out, they can only survive if they keep expanding. If they don't, then they will collapse, because there will be the inability to they basically have to have an aggressive army and show that they're conquering more territory in order to justify. And that could be part of what Putin is doing. He's fearful that if he were to rest on his laurels, that the whole Russian state would implode and fall apart into smaller areas, fighting against each other. But by having a big, massive army, keep in mind his generals, like the top minister of defense, was from Tuva, Tuva, which is a small a satellite area way outside of it's 1,000 miles from Moscow, and that's where the minister of defense was from. So these are. I think that's part of the history of Russia. Russia is an imperial power, an expanding imperial power, and in modern days we don't really need that. We really have reached what I called a post-colonial era. Look at all of Africa and the colonies that were set up by the Europeans, and they've all given those up, and they now become independent states. So I would be in favor, and I'm kind of a Russian specialist. I would be in favor of the deconstructing of Russia. It should collapse into separate territories, and some of them should be given back to areas. The whole Russian Far East, for example, that was actually originally under the Chinese control.
Well, how can we squeeze the neck of Russia? How can we chop off its head? I don't know. What do we do?
Well, if we were to challenge, first of all, we should challenge the whole concept of Russia being in the Security Council of the United Nations. The USSR was in the Security Council.
Listen. They don't care anymore about titles. At my age, I'm 71. Gary's 80. You know what? I'm Putin. Pretend I'm Putin. I don't give a damn about your organization.
No.
Doesn't diddly squat to me.
Well,
how about yourself and power if you're on that side?
No, but the key here, what you're not getting here, Rhett, is the concept that Russia is an illegitimate state. It's illegitimate. That's the basic concept I'm arguing. And Russia, especially, it claimed that it was going to become the successor state to the Soviet Union. Now, why would Russia be the successor state and not some other part of the Soviet Union? And why would Russia, as a subgroup within the USSR, be entitled to take over the Security Council of the United Nations seat? There are only 5 permanent members. Russia should not have been a member when the USSR collapsed. Russia should not have been awarded the permanent membership seat to the United Nations. That's one of the things I would argue. It was improper for them to claim that. They are not the successor. Russia's not the successor to the USSR. That's an important concept. So we need to start challenging them on many fronts as far as their legitimacy, and that would be a big part. And here's an example what Putin is doing. And I'm going to get to my topics a little bit here, because we do cover some topics on the show. And one of the topics that we were supposed to be talking about is the fact that Russia is accusing Ukraine of being a terrorist state, and that its launching of drones into Russia are acts of terrorism. That's what Putin is claiming. Putin is claiming that when Ukraine sends a drone into Russia, it's acting as a terrorist.
Kind of like the Palestinians are saying about the Jews. And Israel.
Well, let's not bring that in at the
No,
moment.
okay, I know. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. I'm just making a comparison.
Are we stupid enough to believe that crap? Putin doesn't believe. Oh, come on.
No, but
Let me ask, David. Let me ask you a question about Russia.
yeah,
Just my understanding is from again, for the news media, etc.
right.
I'm no authority on anything
Yeah.
except my opinions.
Yeah.
But one of the problems with Ukraine and Russia right now is because the United States talked Ukraine into giving up their nuclear weapons, which they did, which we're going to give to somehow protect or help protect and with Ukraine. And because, I mean, the situation there is caused in some part because of political interference from the United States. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm
Just like in Vietnam.
Yeah, I will explain that. I know that situation perfectly. In fact, the agreement that was made, it's called the Budapest Memoranda. The Budapest Memoranda that was signed. It was a agreement by Ukraine at the time of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Ukraine had the third largest number of nuclear weapons in the world. Ukraine did. In its territory.
And they were part of Russia at the time.
No, they weren't part of Russia. They were
before.
They
at
were
one time when
they were part of
the nuclear weapons originally come from Russia to Ukraine when they were a part of Russia.
Well, see, they weren't part of Russia. They were part of the USSR. That's what you keep mixing up.
Okay,
Russia
yeah,
is not the USSR. That's what I want everybody to understand. USSR is not Russia. Russia is Russia. Ukraine is Ukraine, and the USSR included both of them. Okay. So Brezhnev was not in charge. In fact, Brezhnev was originally from an area that was more Ukrainian. Brezhnev,
Just for me to relate, could I say that would be like comparing Puerto Rico with the United States?
Yeah. Well, let's not bring in that.
I'm not trying to change the subject. I'm just trying to understand it and find something I can relate to.
So technically speaking, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, Ukraine, an independent country, had the third largest number of nuclear weapons on its territory, and it agreed in what's called the Budapest Memoranda. It agreed in a signed document with Britain, Russia, and the United States as guarantors.
Vowing, V-O-W-I-N-G.
Yeah, as guarantors that if it gave up those nuclear weapons, that those three countries, Britain, Russia, and the United States, would provide security, territorial sovereignty and security for Ukraine in the future, because they were giving up their defenses. They gave up their defenses. And we haven't done it. And what happened, and this is why when Russia invaded Crimea, Crimea is this little peninsula down at the south of Ukraine. When they did that in 2014, and that was with Obama as president, by the way. I was very, very upset that the U.S. did not enforce its guarantees to Ukraine and face off with Russia and say, you can't do this. This is improper. You can't take over that. You committed at the time of the giving up of the nuclear weapons in Ukraine that you would protect their sovereignty, not steal their land. So Putin violated the Budapest Memoranda. That's why Zelensky today is saying you can't trust what the Russians say and promise. Don't trust them.
Or the United States.
Well, in this case, or the United States, almost, because
any government for that, because they change.
Well, see, this was, and now keep in mind, this was a Budapest Memoranda. It was not a treaty. Treaties are confirmed and ratified by the Senate.
Kind of a faithful promise.
It was a faithful promise, and what later on they ended up saying was, well, we did not offer a security guarantee. We offered a security assurance. So if you want to be parsing through the words, an assurance is not as solid as a guarantee. I assure you I know what I'm talking about. That's not as good.
I don't doubt that at all. It's just playing with words. That's what people do all the time.
Yeah. So that's why the Ukrainians feel we betrayed them. We, the United States, they had what they thought was an ironclad guarantee to protect them in case of an invasion, since they gave up their nuclear weapons. And in fact, what we did is we just, waffled away and didn't do anything. And
all right, listen, we have other things to discuss today.
Okay.
So, Palestine filing legal case against Israel, right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Is Palestinians filing legal case against Israel in International Court of Justice a hostile act? The U.S. State Department has imposed punitive sanctions on the Palestinian Authority and its leader, Mahmoud Abbas, for their supporting legal cases charging Israel with genocide and war crimes. Should Palestine supporting an international legal case accusing Israel of misconduct be considered a hostile act, deserving banning of visas to women? I don't think so. Do you think so?
No, I don't think so either. And therefore, I'm in disagreement with our government as it's being applied by the Trump administration.
Why are they doing that?
And by Marco Rubio. To me, and Rubio is actually saying in his comments, he's saying that the U.S. Is of the opinion that the International Criminal Court trying Netanyahu for war crimes, that is a hostile act against the United States. And believe it or not, Trump has a presidential executive order. It's called 14203, and he's invoking that, saying that the ICC, that's the International Criminal Court, has engaged in illegitimate and baseless actions targeting America and our close ally, Israel, and it's abusing its power with baseless arrest warrants targeting Netanyahu. The ICC's actions against Israel and the United States set a dangerous precedent, and as a result, any effort by them to arrest, detain, or prosecute Netanyahu would be considered a threat to the national security of the United States. That's Trump's.
What about war crimes and killing the children? I don't get it.
Well, that's the point. You see, Trump is actually claiming that the court reviewing a case and coming to determination that Netanyahu and Israel is behaving improperly and engaged in war crimes, that is a liable, you might even say from Netanyahu's terms, a blood libel against Israel. Anything that criticizes Israel has to be, a blood libel. It has to be anti-Semitic, and they just hate the Jews. No, they don't. That's why I'm trying to explain. I love the Jews, and I do support the right of Israel to exist, but I detest what Netanyahu is doing and how he's doing it. Okay? I disagree with the far right in Israel, the Ben Gvir and the Smotriches and others that want to bomb the whole place to smithereens. Gary, you mentioned, that they were being, and you hear this on Fox and Newsmax a lot, that, Israel is using precise methods of attacking Hamas and that there's very little incidental damage. That's total bull.
I've heard they've done a better job than other countries have done in war to be cautious about civilian. They're killing a lot of people, and people are. I'm not debating any of that. I'm not discussing. Not debate.
Yeah.
I don't doubt any of that. But I think when you're in war and fighting for your life, you do what you can do, and you fight to win. I think if somebody invaded my house, then I wouldn't be happy until they were destroyed. And if somebody invaded my country and killed people in my family, I wouldn't be happy until I destroyed them.
Yeah, but you see, you need to flip that whole question around and assume that the Israelis are the ones that invaded the Palestinians' house. The Palestinians,
Israelis blow up buses, kill innocent people, school kids, go in and take innocent people.
Okay,
the things they did. Not now, but over the last 4 decades, since 1948.
Yeah, I know the whole history of that from 1948.
I'm sure more than I do. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I want to explain to you. There was a period there called the Second Intifada, which was where they started to use terrorist tactics. Prior to that, we have something that we got to, which was quite optimistic. It was called the Oslo Accords, Oslo Peace Accords. That was in 1993. 1993, and you actually had the Yasser Arafat was shaking hands with Yitzhak Shamir, I think it was, and they agreed essentially to move towards a two-state solution. But what happened was the far right in Israel, they did not like that idea. They saw that as compromise, that the Shamir was giving in and abandoning this dream of the far right Zionists that all of Israel would be only for the Jews. So they hated their own prime minister for cutting that deal. And so along in 1994, you had a guy named Baruch Goldstein who went to the what's called the Temple of the Patriarchs or the tomb of the patriarchs is where Abraham and Isaac and Sarah.
How
and all
old
this.
is this Baruch Goldstein?
Farouk Goldstein was a young settler. He was a young Israeli settler.
Is he alive now?
No, he died. But Farouk Goldstein went into the tomb of the patriarchs, which is basically Abraham. By the way, is the father. You mentioned that Abraham only had one son.
No. Nobody ever said he only had
No,
one.
Gary said that. Gary said
But
that.
at that time, I think he had one son.
No, he
Yeah,
had.
it was Ishmael, who's
he
the
had
guy that
two
was later
sons.
kicked out of the tent
Ishmael-
because God had promised Sarah.
Yeah, okay. Well, wait. Let me clarify this for Gary, because Gary said, that was the only son was Ishmael. Was Isaac. Ishmael was an older son. But according to the
Hold on. No. This is where my expertise comes in
go
here,
ahead.
baby.
Okay.
So God says to Sarah, "You're going to have a child." She says, "I'm in my 90s." Baloney. She didn't believe God. So anyway, so she says to Abraham, go have sex, ostensibly, with my maid, and she'll bring forth a son for us. We can adopt, and then. So the maid has the baby, and of course, then Sarah becomes very jealous of this maid, and then Sarah, according to God's will, because God is not a man that he should lie, Sarah does get pregnant, even in her 90s, and brings forth Isaac. And so Isaac, of course, Isaac is favored, and Sarah, the wife of Abraham, convinces Abraham to expel Hagar, who is the maid. He says a maid. Some people call it a concubine. Whatever.
Some people call it a second wife or whatever.
Everybody talks and has opinion, and opinions are like butts. Everybody's got one.
So that son, who is called Ishmael, that was his name, Ishmael. He is the father of many tribes. He was the father of 12
God said
tribes.
that Ishmael will be like a wild donkey, an ass,
jackass,
a wild donkey.
No, that's
for all
Esau.
time. And
Rhett,
he also said
wrong.
these
That's
people.
wrong.
Nope. This is in the Bible. And he also says,
Rhett, you find it in the Bible. You're wrong. I'm sorry. You're wrong. What he said about the wild donkey is Esau. E-S-A-U.
Huh?
E-S-A-U. He's the one that Jacob cheated. That was the brother of Jacob. The brother of Jacob was the red-haired wild donkey. He was the one that hunted and ate the porridge. That's Esau. You got that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
No.
I know. Anyway,
I find it, but we'll check it out.
Yeah, let's not get too deep into the Bible here. What we were trying to just discuss this issue about, because Gary was saying, if somebody invaded his house, he would have the right to defend himself.
Okay, we have a 5-minute warning.
Okay,
5-minute
all right. So we're going to have to. I want to clarify this from the Palestinians' point. The Palestinians have been living there for 1,800 years until David Ben Gurion and the Zionists decided they wanted to try to set up camp in Israel, and they ended up using rather aggressive methods. There was some terrorist groups called the Haganah and the Stern Gang that were set up in the 1930s that were engaged in terrorism, killing Arabs that were living in that area because they wanted to clear out those people so they could take over the land themselves. So believe it or not, the Israelis were the terrorists. The British called the Haganah and the Stern Gang Jews terrorists. The British did. Okay? They were the terrorists, and the Palestinians were not. But then, once the Israelis established themselves and won the war in 1947, the War of Independence of Israel, then the Palestinians became the terrorists. So that's why I brought this up earlier about Putin calling the Ukrainians terrorists when they launch a drone attack. How ironic that the Ukrainians, in defense, self-defense, they launch drone attacks on Russia, and Russia turns around and says, that's a terrorist attack.
People that win the wars write the history books.
Well, you do have a point there. And sometimes winning a war unjustly doesn't change the fact that they won the war.
People take it all the way back to the United States and American Indians. I mean, they were here for thousands of years, and we come over as Europeans. And it's human nature and history.
Yeah.
I think I can sum history up if somebody wants to look at it hard enough. Everything the pendulum theory just I know it's simplification, but it tells what history is. It keeps swinging back and forth throughout time.
Yeah. Well,
But
it is unfortunate, though. Like I said, when Israel decided, the Zionists decided to plop themselves into the middle of this Arab area, and then suddenly wake up the next morning and say, I'm surrounded by Arabs. Well, excuse me, you just decided to move into a fully Arab neighborhood, and now don't sit there and complain that you're surrounded by Arabs. And they said, I'm surrounded by Arabs, and they're all enemies. So
always two sides to every conflict, depending on which side you choose to.
Right.
And it changes all the time. People, it just, it's oversimplification, but but what you're saying is you've got more knowledge than I have. And I think, like I said, the only thing I have is opinions.
Yeah. Well, you've got,
and I like to correct them.
Yeah, and you've got good ideas and a good heart, and I'm not saying anybody's wrong, and that's why, Charlie Kirk and William Buckley, I'm all in favor of discussing things. It helps. We all can learn from each other as long as we show respect for each other. Don't trash them just because they don't agree with you.
I've learned in my lifetime that I've said all my whole life, every experience in life has value.
Yeah.
And generally, the worse the experience, the more value it has.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. We next time we'll have to talk about Saipan. Yeah, that was a very bad. I actually visited Saipan, and believe it or not, some of those American tanks that were landing craft and things, they are still out in the water in Saipan today. That's like 50 years or 60 years later. Or 70 years later, they're still there.
Okay, I tell you what. Right now, I know Gary believes in Jesus. David, you believe in Jesus too?
I do, but I'm not going to stay for the program. I've got to head out.
I'm not asking you to. I'm not asking you. See the arrogance? You're presuming what I'm going to do.
Oh, you're
going
to
to ask us to pray together for peace.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, Father, we come boldly to the throne of grace in the name of Jesus. We ask for peace throughout the world to reign and rule. We ask you, Father, in Jesus' name to intervene. We pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We pray for the peace of all of Israel, Jews and Palestinians alike. We pray for peace in Ukraine. We pray for peace in Russia. We pray for peace in Poland. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you. Thank you.
How much time? I'd like just a part of two questions. I wonder if you knew Steve Nelson. You were at the museum down there. And he's from Vero Beach. He was friends with, anyway, he was one of the deputies down there. Good guy, but he volunteers. He's retired now. Volunteers down there. The other thing, though, I just want to get this in. But a privilege and a pleasure to get to talk to you, and very informational, and I learned a lot from talking to you. I appreciate the time, and thank you, Rhett.
Oh, you're welcome. Me. Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
In spite of Rhett, I really...
That's what most people say. Rhett, you're a gem. Okay, you guys have a nice day, okay? Yeah, nice
Okay,
week.
guys. Hey, thank you very much for your time and caring about our country. God bless America.
Amen.
We didn't get a lot of topics in, but whatever. Kept it interesting.